Okay, hello guys. Sorry, my camera options are kind of crappy right now. I'm using my laptop, but it's working and I can see what I'm doing actually. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, this is the rolling block, and here today I'm going to talk about reloading for 7 Mauser, Spanish Mauser for the Remington #5 military rolling block. Wow, that's a mouthful. Anyway, so reasons to reload for this rifle. Let me pull mine up. These rifles on their actions. These were the Spanish contracts, and when they built the Spanish contract Remington rolling blocks, they chambered them in 7 Mauser. But they chambered them just slightly longer than the traditional German style, the European style 7 Mauser, which means you can have excess headspace, as well as there's also just some pressure ranges that you need to watch out for. But again, the headspace issue is the main reason behind not being able to shoot this thing with normal factory loads plus pressure. So make sure you reload and you know what you're doing so you don't blow yourself up trying to shoot this one. This is mine. I spoilerized the hell out of it, but hey, who cares? It's my gun. Watch my other videos on it. I've got the original one that kind of gives an overview of the whole project, and then one that I just finished up and will hopefully be uploading soon. That's going to talk about what I've done to this rifle and the last couple steps to do. Anyway, let me get back into the guns, the ammo. So to start off with, to prevent yourself from having the head spacing issues, I'm forming my brass myself. What I'm doing is, first off, you can buy 7mm Mauser brass, the original stuff that's got the shorter chambering, but it's kind of expensive. I think I've seen it for around $70 for about 100 of them, maybe even 50 of them. And then I can, if I make the cartridge myself, the case myself, I can physically, make the dimensions to exactly what I want and what I need for my rifle. So to start off with, I'm using 30-06 brass, and I'm turning it into 7mm Mauser brass. This particular brass is the PPU Privy Partisan brass. It's 100 pieces, and I found that this stuff, let me see if I can get it up closer so you can read it. Okay, probably can't. Oh well, sorry about that, guys. I found that this brass gives proper neck tension. It's got the right thickness to the neck after you've resized it to work for this. That being said, what I've started out with is, again, 30-06, and I got this die off of Midway USA. With this die, it allows you to take 30-06 and form it into 7 Mauser. And actually, I found, just sheer luck, after I size the 30-06 through with this die, it comes out to the exact dimensions I need for my gun. So that's just complete luck right there. Anyway, so this will size it down. When I'm sizing with this die, I've also found that you need to do it in 2 steps. The first step, where you take your 30-06 and you run it up there and you just do it enough to change the neck itself. Basically, as soon as the neck starts to run up into the top of the die, back it out. Wipe the grease off a little bit, and you want still grease on there, but you just want to make sure it's not all caked up in certain areas, and then you can run it again for the full run. If you don't do that, what ends up happening is that extra grease kind of gets caught up where your new shoulder is going to be formed, and it presses into your neck and creases it, and you can't get them out, and it's bad for issues, all sorts of issues. Don't do it. It's bad. That's enough. That's all you need to know. Anyway, so again, do it in 2 steps. You'll be fine. After that, I do recommend annealing your brass to soften up the copper around it, or the brass, I'm sorry, so that you have better case life. When you're doing this much work to get one piece of brass for that gun, you definitely want it to last. And with the actions on these guns, I know they're prone to destroying and splitting necks. So take care of your brass so it'll last as long as you can, so you don't have to constantly rebuild brass. Next step. So now you've got this thing, it's got a really long neck, and you can't have that because it won't fit in your gun. So you cut it down. I'm using specifications out of my Lyman book for the original cartridge. As far as the overall length of the case goes, I'm cutting mine down to 2.225 inches. And that seems to be fitting my gun pretty damn well. I haven't had any issues with it yet. I've done 8 test fire loads from 27 to 36 grains of this powder. I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, that'll give you your case. It's finally annealed. The cases themselves are ready to go. The data I'm using calls for, it was CCI 200 primers. It really wasn't specific, but that's what I have on hand, so that's what I'm using. CCI large rifle primers. So I've got them primed up, they're ready to be loaded. Now this is the data I'm using. This is the data I found that has worked for me, and I've only done this because I'm using this because I've safety checked it by firing the gun from a safe distance with the pull string. All the data I'm going to give you today is data that I've used, and it's worked for me. If you use this data, it is not my fault that anything happens to you if it does. So just keep that in mind. Anything you get from this today, it's purely on you to decide if you want to take the risk and use it. Again, as for any reloads, always make sure that you are doing everything as safely as possible and you know what you're doing. Okay, so again, not my fault if you get hurt. From there, I'm actually not using data from this book here entirely. I was talking to a customer at my work a while ago, and he sent me some data from one of his published books. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone here. I think it's an old Lyman book, or I can't really remember what it was. But anyway, it gives data. I don't know if this will show up on camera. Not really, but what my load is H4350. It gives loads for a whole bunch of different powders that tend to be slow burning rates, low pressure. That's exactly what 4350 is. There's also 4850. Hodgson produces this in H4350. IMR has it in IMR 4350. People have used 3031 and 4064 and a few different other variants of that. But again, for the older actions, try to stick to this stuff. The slower burning rate will be better for your gun. It'll be lower pressure. Starting pressure loads, as far as my research have shown, our powder loads should be about 60% of your max. So in this case, that comes out to about 27 grains from a start. And when I did my testing to make sure the gun wasn't going to blow up, I started out at 27 grains and I worked my way up to, I believe it was 36 grains of this powder. After that, I didn't have any sort of pressure signs. Everything worked out perfectly. So great there. 4350, that's your powder. Choose what you want, do some more research, maybe there's something else, maybe you can't get this one, although this seemed to be a pretty easy one to find at my gunsmith store. The projectiles I'm using are these Hornady SSTs. These are exactly .284 in diameter, which happen to match up with my bore. Generally, when you do these, you need to slug your bore. Most of these will be pretty worn out by the time you get them, just because it's about a 100-year-old rifle and it's been used heavily in combat and stuff like that. Or just by people target shooting with them, and they'll typically come out to .285, .286. I got really lucky when I got my gun. The outside was pretty beat up, but the bore itself was pristine, like it had never even been shot almost. And when I slugged it, it came out to exactly .284. So that's why I'm using these. I can get away with it. These guns were originally designed to use the brass jacketed ammo, so why not? I mean, it's going to be easier. You're not going to worry about leading or anything like that. I'm going to try doing some cast loads for it, but I'm still learning that process, and I don't know much about it. Anyway, 162 grains. The original cartridge, they used, I think, 175 grains, 173 grain projectiles. And so I figure the heavier bullets will help match the harmonics that it was designed around. Going to give me the best accuracy, as well as I plan on hunting hogs with this gun, so I want something that's going to have a little bit of a wallet behind it to really hit the hogs. So that's what I'm using. This is a complete cartridge. This particular one is 30 grains of the 4350, and then another thing you'll have to do is see how long your neck is. You have the lands and grooves check. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but mine came out pretty long. If you can see here, my case ends here, and my grooves here are pretty far up. I found that when I put this case in there and checked that length, that these things need to be set up pretty far forward. So for this particular bullet, when I'm done seating them, it comes out to exactly 3.15 inches. I'm sorry, yeah, 3.15. And that sits it back just a little bit past, or I mean a little bit behind my lands and grooves, and that's said to give the best accuracy, as well as you'll get a little bit less tear out on your throats, because the bullet's not bumping around and jumping around in there. That's pretty much all there is to it. Just again, when you're doing this, be safe. You gotta really pay attention to what you're doing. If you don't trust your firearm, don't get behind it. Tie it to a tree, pull the trigger from a string really far away. That's exactly what I did, and I found out my gun is safe to shoot, so I can go on to the next stages. It's not too hard to load for this one. It's not necessarily something you want to be doing if you're just getting into reloading, but if you know something about reloading and you know what you're doing, or you feel confident, definitely, it's not hard to reload for. It just takes a little bit more time to prepare the brass, and you just got to know what you're doing. So with that being said, again, be careful, be safe, and hopefully I'll start producing videos about my other firearms and other reloading hints, tips, whatever the word is, I can't remember. So leave comments if you know anything that you want to ask, or you see something horribly wrong that I need to address. And thank you very much. You be safe and have fun shooting. Alright, where's that damn button?